So, bluff fishing. Here I am, 23, 24 years old, fishing a Bassmaster Elite Series tournament. I think it was my second or third year on tour. I go to Bluffs. I've never fished Lake Bluffs, you know, so I got to use what I know, what little bit of knowledge that I took from home and have carried with me, and I see Bluffs, all right? Now I know a straight bluff is probably, I've read Bassmaster Magazine, read all other pro stories, how tournaments have been won. I know that a straight wall bluff is not any good except for when the water temperatures are super, super, super cold. Because fish use that wall for heat, they use it for shade, and they use it to go up and down in the water column along with the bait real quickly. And the fish on a straight wall bluff is probably the hardest ones in the world to catch because they're always suspended. They have nothing to relate to. They have nothing for your bait to actually sit on and entice that fish. That's why they're so hard to catch. Stair-step bluffs is probably the best thing I'll ever look for. You know, in a current situation, you know, your jagged bluffs is what I really love because now you've got current. It's not necessarily about your bait hitting anything. It's all about a wall for those fish to sit behind as an ambush point. So when you got current, jagged bluffs are what you want to look for. It doesn't matter if they're straight up and down, stair-step. They need a lot of rock outcrops to sit behind to ambush. It doesn't matter if they're suspended or not. If they see your bait come by, they're going to eat it. So that's kind of, I'm laying out different scenarios of what I'm going to look for first. Bluff ends, you know, that's more of a real pre-spawn type of deal. If I'm in a lake and the water temperature's from 55 to 59 degrees, I know automatically that the fish are just before spawning. And that's what they're going to use. A bluff end 9 times out of 10 is going to be at the mouth of a pocket or a mouth of a creek where the bluff end comes down, it makes a little point, those fish stage up there, and they push back into the creeks and get ready to spawn. That is the last place a lot of times they'll stop before they go into a creek to spawn. So stair-step bluffs, you know, the baits I'm going to use on this, I mean, it kind of depends. Kind of depends on, you know, if it's on the main lake, you know, if it falls 10 foot, you've got a stair-step. It falls to 35 and a stair-step. It's all about where in the water column those fish are. So that's what you've got to figure out first. You have to get a bite. And the best thing to start out with, I'm going to use on a bluff is, it's a green fish. It's called an itty bitty finesse jig. And I can cover a lot of water with this. The main reason is I'm not letting it go to the bottom a lot of times, especially on a stair-step bluff. I'll pitch it out right up to the bluff wall. And you're not going to believe who taught me how to do this. It's a guy from Alabama, and I ain't even going to tell you who it was. But you pitch a jig up to the bluff, and I'm not going to let it necessarily go to the bottom. I'm going to let it fall just a little bit. And just like Jesse was talking about fishing a shaky head, and that's the way I fish a shaky head too. You slack line twitching this jig, but it's never on the bottom. So you're not doing anything but trying to keep contact with it. You're just moving it enough to be able to feel it. And what that's doing, that's letting that jig kind of skate down the bluff, and it'll hit bottom every now and then, but you're trying to keep it, you know, a foot or two off the bluff. You're covering water. You know, and if those fish are active, you're going to get bit. So now that tells you a depth range. You can already go with a depth range. And when you're fishing like this, you don't have to make like really long casts. You can just pitch 10 or 15 feet, just like from that door. And you can cover that whole water scale. I'm using a 3/8 green fish, itty bitty jig. It's a finesse jig. I got a Zoom creepy crawler tail on it, which is it's kind of the finesse version of the Fat Albert twin tail grub. Gives it a little bit of action, but it's still subtle. And this is what I use when it's cold water now. You know, you don't want to get too much, use a smaller profile bait. And that helps you cover that bluff end or bluff range. Once you get a bite, now you know, okay, I hit that stair step, or either it was before the first stair step or it was after the first stair step, and it gives you a water depth that you can go look for. All right? So you go down through there and you get a bite. You get another bite. Same water range, same water column, doing the same exact thing. Now you can turn your electronics on and you can say, all right, I see how this one's set up. That one right there looks just the same. You can go hit it, pull up to it, go 20 feet, catch one, boom, you're done. I mean, you're searching. What you're trying to do is find as much as you can find exactly like what you're doing in a small amount of time. I'm talking practicing for a tournament. Now, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to come back, look at this one. Hey, this looks the same. Run. You're going to find as much of that stuff as you can in as little amount of time as you can. All right? Say it's another different time of year. Say we're on into, fish are even spawning now. And I use Lake Wheeler because this is where I got most of the experience. And I don't fish it very much, but it's the most experience, and I've done well there fishing Bluffs. This is during the spawn. All fish don't go in the backs of pockets. A lot of them spawn right there on those bluffs. And I call these secondary bluffs. They're actually in a creek arm or at the mouth of a creek arm. Some of them are even on the main lake, but they're straight walled, but they're not very deep. The first stair step may be in 3 or 4 feet, and then, 10 or 12 foot is the max depth. It's basically a channel swing, but you got rock there. Perfect scenario here, you got some type of broken rock off of this bluff, either where it's caved in or it's got some mixed wood on it. Blowdowns, trash just washed in from, when it had a big rain, the lake came up, you got all these log jams that come up against these walls and the lake go down, they'll sink. This situation, this is how I finished second on Wheeler in April. It was about the end of April, but the fish were right before going on the bed. These fish, what they do, they're actually...
Bass University TV, an online video training course where you'll learn champion bass fishing techniques from pro anglers Pete Gluzek, Mike Iaconelli, and their talented special guests. Watch hours of video content on multiple topics at your own pace for a low monthly fee. Cancel at any time. Subscribe today.